think every one of us have had the epiphany moment as we are cleaning up our house, as we're doing our dishes, that we have this kind of futility realization that no matter how hard we clean and no matter how good we do of a job cleaning, that in somewhat it's kind of futile because tomorrow, the next day, by next week for sure, it will all be messy again. I mean, clean as much as we want, but next week the vacuum's going to have to come out again, the Windex is going to have to come out again, the duster's going to have to come out again, some more soap is going to be needed because what we cleaned is going to be messed up again. In fact, as a kid, I know I try to pull that logic out of my mom that what's the point of cleaning my room, Mom, because it's just going to get dirty again. And that logic didn't work. But there is some aspect of frustration as we think through we just have to keep on cleaning over and over again. And I wonder if that was ever an epiphany moment that the priest in the Old Testament ever felt. You know, that day, maybe he's going through and it's halfway through the day and they're already exhausted, having lugged around animals and having slaughtered so many dozens upon dozens upon dozens of animals and lugged them up on top of an altar and surrounded by the smells of burnt animal flesh and maybe some blood splattered on them, that they just kind of take a moment and a deep breath and saying, like, what's the point? Because, like, tomorrow we're going to have to come back and do this all over again. And maybe even have the point where they think for a second, like, I wish we could just stay clean and didn't need more sacrifices. That is the reality painted in this final section that we're going to look at in the book of Hebrews. Chapters 9 and 10 use some phrases over and over again to just show that these sacrifices in the Old Testament didn't keep us clean. They just happened over and over and over again. If you were to scan chapter 9 and 10, you'd see the phrase repeated beginning in 9:6 where it just says the priests go regularly. They got to keep on doing it. 9:25, they repeatedly offer up sacrifices. Chapter 10 starts with this statement, the sacrifices continually offered up every year. 10:11, we have a similar statement. Every priest stands daily at his service, offering repeatedly the same sacrifices. They did it yesterday, they're going to do it again, they're going to do it again, and they're going to keep on doing it again. Now, please don't think that the repeated aspect of these sacrifices in the Old Testament meant that the Old Covenant, the sacrificial system of the Old Testament was somehow bad. It was broken. It's instituted by God. It was never meant to complete the work of cleansing us from our sins. It wasn't meant to be the solution. It did its job. Its job was to be a shadow of the real thing that was coming. And that's actually stated in 10:1 of Hebrews. It is a shadow of what is to come. It's to make us say this isn't the solution. I don't care how many animals we sacrifice, we still have this guilt in ourselves that our sin is still present. We still sin. Something else needs to be done. It was supposed to make the people yearn for a sacrifice. In fact, if those priests had that moment of epiphany as they sat there all exhausted from offering these sacrifices and said, I wish there'd be something that could just keep us clean, that would have been a right response. Because as Hebrews 9 and 10 goes over and over again and says it's repeated over and over again and these sacrifices happen continually, it flips the coin with another phrase that happens over and over again in those passages. And that is a phrase of Jesus' sacrifice. But instead of saying it happened repeatedly and continually, Jesus' sacrifice is mentioned as the sacrifice that happens once for all of time. Hebrews 9:12, 9:26, once for all. 9:28, offered once. Hebrews 10:10, once for all. Hebrews 10:12, for all time. All leading up to the declaration that concludes the whole first kind of theological argument of Hebrews in 10:18, where there is forgiveness of these being the sins, verse 17, there is no longer any offering for sin. It doesn't need to happen anymore. Nothing is left undone by Jesus' sacrifice. We are clean by it. One time. We don't need another spring cleaning after we have been cleaned by the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. It's not like Jesus Christ did a really good job, but he kind of left a few things in our lives that we need to work on to get ourselves better. It's finished. It's not like he did his part and now we need to do our part. It's all done. Once for all of time, the sacrifice has been made. No more payment for sin is needed. Now, we may nod our head at that, but even Christian, there are moments where we slip into our thinking that somehow we need to earn God's favor. We need to somehow make the sacrifice better in our lives. We need to make up for our sin. That kind of thinking is thinking that is not realizing in those moments that we are already clean before God because of Jesus' sacrifice for once for all of time. There's nothing left I need to do to make myself right with God because Jesus Christ already made me clean. Our response to this once for all sacrifice isn't that we need to finish it, keep it touched up. We need to maybe kind of boost our favor up with God a little bit more. Our response is, I'm already clean before God because of Jesus Christ. And so then let me live in thankfulness and praise and endure in that faith that I have in Jesus Christ. That's how the whole book finishes. So for 9.5 chapters, he's been building this argument that Jesus Christ is better, so endure. Jesus Christ is the payment. He is the high priest. He's greater than angels and Moses. I mean, he goes through all this kind of argumentation. And then 10:19 starts with this word therefore. So therefore, because of all this argument now, we have confidence in our faith with him. Therefore, because of all that Jesus Christ is, which is better than anything else, we can endure confidently in our faith with him. This is kind of echoed when you get to chapter 12. There's another therefore, continuing to build off of this faith that we have. Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Considered him who endured from sinners such hostility, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. So there is still an action point. But the action point is not to make us right with God, to clean our lives up. But because of our faith in Jesus Christ, who was the once for all sacrifice, we then endure through Jesus Christ in this faith that we have in him. So, this is the call then. We endure. We continue on. Not to make ourselves right with God, but because the work has already been finished. That we can be confident that even if we have bad days, we fail, we have good days, we honor God with our life. That doesn't change my standing of being clean and my sins being paid for with God. I simply am responding to what God has already done in my life through Jesus Christ's once for all sacrifice.